Hey, Stephanie, it's so great to be back in the podcast studio today. And now that we're podcast hosts and writers, I have a question. Do you listen to podcasts?
Yeah, now more than ever.
Why now more than ever?
Because the world is on fire and I need to know what's going on.
Oh, well, out of curiosity, I actually feel the same way. I counted, I listened to, get this, 18 different podcasts on a regular basis. Some of these include a couple of YouTube essayists, but what's interesting as I think about it is that I don't know any of these podcasts in person as real people, but I've been listening to some of them for years and I feel like I know them. And what's interesting, I've actually come to trust a lot of them.
Wow. Well, I definitely do not listen to 18 podcasts. That's way more than I do. But I am curious to understand why you say you trust them.
There's probably a lot of reasons, probably just common interests, feelings of connection and familiarity around what they talk about. And some of this develops into feeling like I know the people, their lives, who they are. And, there's a term called parasocial relationship, which we'll probably get to at some point in these conversations. But these knowing, feeling like you know people, it creates trust. And our conversation today, we'll be talking about trust and we'll be talking a little bit of brain science.
Oh, okay. Well, I love talking about brain science. I have never heard the word parasocial until you. So, anyway, let's not waste any more time. Let's just get into it.
Dear listeners and entrepreneurs, welcome to the WEBB Remedy podcast. I'm Rinnie, the co-founder and associate director of WEBB Squared, your podcast host and producer.
And I'm Stephanie, the ED of WEBB Squared.
Stephanie, as we begin our second conversation on trust, I just want to say that trust is a very powerful force and it lies at the center of every individual relationship, team member, family member, the organizations and social systems that we are surrounded by. And if just this trust is removed, it slows down progress, it breaks down these relationships and friendships, and it can even destroy the most powerful communities.
Yeah, ditto, Rennie. Seriously, trust is the foundation of most every life experience. It's such a huge part of how we do business. It's an essential part of our relationships. And when we don't understand it, or we don't understand how to communicate about it, it can have seriously devastating consequences.
Yeah, when trust and goodwill are destroyed, unfortunately, what's left is skepticism and distrust. Right now, in our current social and political reality, people are so skeptical and distrust runs rampant, and it's all driven by misleading news, AI media algorithms that drive content, and just the dispelling of propaganda all over the place.
Yeah, lots and lots of propaganda, by the way. But we've talked about some of the negative connotations of trust. But trust is also an opportunity to fulfill expectations. It's a huge informant in how we nourish loving feelings, and it most definitely creates safety in our relationships and businesses. The thing about trust is it is built over time through lots of positive moments and experiences. Rennie, I'm thinking about when we first started working web, and we started working together every day. And we hadn't worked that close together before. And I remember there were many, many times where, like, there was some distrust and we didn't understand each other and we couldn't communicate through it. But through the years of building trust, our working environment began to become more safe and our relationship has flourished.
Yeah. Um, Them were good old days.
Yes.
No, I appreciate you, Stephanie, and I feel the same. It's been quite a journey. We've been closely at the hip for what, 4 years
Yeah.
now?
Yep.
I mean,
Yep. And we,
next year is our fifth
oh, we
anniversary.
have to celebrate.
Yeah, we do, but
Yes.
well, that's next year. But before we get too far down the like love fest here, let's dive into some neuroscience studies on trust in the workplace and explore what we can learn from them, especially in relationship to our work at WEBB and our community.
Okay.
So while I was writing the script, I came across this article in the Harvard Business Review called The Neuroscience of Trust. It's by an author called Paul J. Zak, a neuroeconomist. Stephanie, have you heard of neuroeconomics?
Actually, I have because this mindset stuff is where I geek out. So I can recall researching and learning about how trust can be like manufactured, and neuroeconomics is a field that gets into that. Basically, it's examining how we make decisions, how we evaluate our options, and then people learn about that to understand what makes us act or behave in certain ways. And depending on who's examining it and why, they may be using that information to make us buy more crap,
We don't need more crap.
right? Or, think certain ways. So, this information is really good to know. We're wanting to share this with all the listeners, because in your work or in your organizations or wherever, we feel like the more you know about behavior and mindsets and trust, the more you'll be able to succeed.
Yes, and trust is a mindset, but today we're going to just talk a little bit about the brain science and a little chemistry. So, in his research, he focuses on a chemical called oxytocin. Zach calls it a trust hormone and studies how it plays a key role in employee engagement, performance, and retention. I am going to share the report in our show notes so people can read it. But, Stephanie, what do you know about oxytocin?
Well, it has nothing to do with business. I know about oxytocin because I nursed 5 babies. And I can remember when I was like deep into natural childbirth that oxytocin was released when I was nursing my children. So it's called like a bonding hormone, and it's something that's in your brain. But the only thing I knew about it, Rinnie, was that it was associated with like the reproductive system.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's also a component in work life, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right. According to Zach, the presence of oxytocin levels are higher in people where organizations are built on trust. People have more job satisfaction, better performance, they're engaged and more open to collaborating as a team. And rather than offering perks and incentives, Zach's research indicates that organizations should focus on trust and trust building in order to have working environments that are less stressful and where people are happier. I can attest to that, though. I was working in a place where trust was low and everybody was walking on eggshells all the time. I found it very difficult to navigate the space. It was hard to go to the office, not knowing what kind of environment I would be stepping into day after day. Relationships I had for years were turned on a dime. It was a really difficult time, Stephanie, and it was all down to not having trust in my team and coworkers.
Listen, Rennie, I have been there and it sucks. That's why when you shared this research with me, I was fascinated by it. And we're still learning it, but I want to know something. Like, who's going around paying people to do these types of experiments?
Yeah, how are they measuring the oxytocin in the workplace?
I know it's a good thing, and I want to learn more about it because knowing that the more I trust, the more oxytocin is increased in me and creates bonds of connection, and it's not just with my kids, is an incredibly good thing to know.
Yes, and when people foster trust, it also influences behaviors around performance, collaboration, and how we are in community together.
You know, this is where some real magic can happen. So, according to this Zach's data, high trust environments have always shown impressive outcomes. Employees that work in high trust environments report 50% more energy, 76% more engagement, and 40% less burnout compared to those in low trust environments. And get this, high trust employees are 50% more likely to stay with their company. And that is huge because, Rinnie, you and I both know that turnover is high and sometimes the costs are greater than the gains.
That's right. So I guess the next question is, how do we build trust? In upcoming podcast episodes, we'll be exploring some of these ideas from the book The Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey. That's just a small preview spoiler for what's ahead. But in the meantime, Zach himself identified several key behaviors that increase trust in organizations. As we talk about them, let's think about how we can apply these strategies within the ecosystem we're building around entrepreneurs. The first behavior he discusses is recognizing excellence, not just giving praise, but offering immediate, tangible recognition that feels personal, unexpected, and public.
Yeah, we did this in November when we recognized all of the individuals and organizations that we call champions of equity in economics. It was so important to us to acknowledge everyone publicly that has helped us be effective in this space because it's so important that people are seen, heard, and valued.
Yeah, our Equity Award event really strengthened the social bonds and our relationships within the community.
You know, now more than ever, while we may not be able to control what is happening in our country, we can inform what's happening in ourselves. And knowing that trust is a key component to happiness, to success, to being vibrant, and that our brains literally create chemical hormones that increase bonding with people, we can feel empowered in being super intentional about the relationships that we're creating and our businesses, our organizations, and the local communities that we're building bonds in.
Yes, and actually, the point you just made about intentionally building relationships is another key point in the research. Intentionally fostering friendships with other team members. Team members are committed to each other's accomplishments and success as much as their own.
And listeners, it's not just about like work development, professional development. This research also emphasizes the importance of facilitating whole person growth. So what that means is that while we work, we also have a home life. We've got, friend life, and this idea that they're all separate makes no sense. So this whole person integration, work life integration, and recognizing that in your relationships, people have all of these different areas where they show up. When we care about that and facilitate the 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 synergy of that, we can begin to really create a more holistic, supportive workplace and home place and all the places that we have relationships.
Exactly. So, Steph, last but not least, Zach talks about showing vulnerability. When leaders are open to what they don't know and ask for help, it actually boosts trust. employees see that their leaders are human, and it encourages collaboration.
This is powerful because when we started, I talked about as how, as the leader of Web, there was moments when I did not know the answer or what was going to happen, and I was acting like I did, and that actually increased the distrust, right?
Mm.
But so as an executive director, I've always had a hard time admitting when I didn't know the answer because I felt like that was no, that's not what a leader is. But I've learned to be vulnerable and say, guess what? I don't know what's going to happen. We're going to have to find out. Or help me, let's learn something together. And this has actually created more trust and more stability with my colleagues and teammates. So to wrap this up, creating a culture of trust is really about creating a culture of bonding. And that's through being intentional, being vulnerable, and really caring and showing interest about the whole person that you're interacting with.
Right. Wow. We talked for a few minutes, but there was a lot of food for thought in that conversation. So thank you, Stephanie. I feel like for this particular conversation, it's a wrap.
I think so. We said a lot, and there's a whole lot more that we can say, but our podcast is only supposed to be 15 minutes. We don't want to burn your ears out.
Yeah,
So,
but before we go, we are going to turn to our moment of gratitude, but please be sure to stay tuned to the end. Our teammate Joseph has some reflection questions on today's conversation for people to ponder this week. Stephanie, I am going to get out of the human world. Usually express gratitude for somebody around me or like one of our community partners or something. But today, I just want to talk about how blessed I feel to have these three little cats that live with me. They just make me laugh and they give me lots of comfort and, the silliness and goofiness. And, I don't think we think about the animal world as much as we think about the human world, but I really think that these creatures are on the planet to teach us something powerful. And I can't really explain it all, but I've been very thankful and grateful to having my three little cats, like, with me every day.
awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Rinnie. I was in a conversation yesterday learning about horses and their like heart and how they can like really feel human beings. So animals do so much to ground us and to support us that we tend to forget. Like there's so much, so many ways to be supported as a human being. What am I grateful for? I am I am really grateful for like the peace that I feel, that I'm able to feel in spite of the chaos. I'm grateful for family. I'm grateful for friends. I'm grateful for our local community. I was at a chamber event last night and it just felt good to be around people that I actually care about. So we want to leave you with that, as we move forward into not knowing this. Be grateful for all of the ways that we're loved and supported.
Thank you. I feel like we're at a close. Do you want to close us out, Steph?
Yeah, I'm scared to say the evolution revolution begins with dialogue. I'm going to say the evolution does begin with dialogue. So let's keep talking to one another. And that's it.
Hi, this is Joseph for this week's Ponder This. How have you experienced the power of trust in your personal or professional relationships? Can you recall a situation where a lack of trust negatively impacted a relationship or organization you are a part of. In what ways do you think increased trust could improve your current work environment or personal relationships? How do you typically build trust with others? Are there any new strategies from this conversation you'd like to try? Reflect on a high trust environment you've been part of. What specific behaviors or practices contributed to the high level of trust?
Thank you for listening to the WEBB Remedy podcast, a mindset shifting project of WEBB Squared. Wealth Through Entrepreneurship for Black and Brown Businesses is a North Carolina nonprofit located in Chatham County. We offer incubator accelerator business services to Black and BIPOC entrepreneurs. Our podcast hosts are Stephanie Terry and Rinnie, the co-founders of WEBB Squared. We realize that building an ecosystem of support is critical to achieving our mission. Your donation to WEBB supports the podcast, WEBB's coaching services, and the promotion of the businesses and entrepreneurs we serve. To learn more about WEBB Squared, please visit our website at webbsquared.org.